the group thought the best would be to list the company, then everyone has the opportunity to grow. CSE also shifted to digitizing, and all the documents are submitted through online platform, and we managed to get the CSE approval within a very short period of 3 weeks time. The government came up with a policy where 70% of the energy to be developed by renewable energy sources by 2030. The trading value is little less than the asset value. There is much of the potential for the share price to go up. So the company will definitely grow as the leading renewable energy developer in the country, and also our target is to be have our name in the global presence.
Hello and welcome to another edition of Stock Pulse. This is a video series we have done to provide a greater insight into listed companies on the Colombo Stock Exchange, so that investors who are investing in such companies will get a better understanding of the potential and opportunities for investment in those companies. Today we have with us Mr. Manjula Perera, Managing Director of WindForce PLC. Hello Manjula and welcome to Stock Pulse. WindForce PLC was listed last year in April in 2021, and at that time it was the largest issue we had, I think, since 2011.
Correct.
And also the IPO was an extremely successful IPO, 8 times oversubscribed, and then you came into becoming a listed company.
Correct.
Can you comment on the process, how you came to be a listed company?
Yes. Originally, WindForce had 2 holding companies. That were our group, that was WindForce Private Limited and Renewagen Private Limited. All the wind and solar projects were under WindForce Private Limited, and all our hydropower projects were under Renewagen Private Limited. So since we had 2 sets of portfolios, so both the parties and also the shareholding of WindForce and Renewagen were almost the same. So we decided to merge the 2 groups, because then our portfolio becomes higher, and we have a better case when we go to the international markets as well. So before the IPO, about 2 years ago, we went for the merger with a valuation done by CAL, and the merger took place. So 2 years before ahead itself, we were ready with the valuation and all that, and we wait. Then the pandemic came. Originally we did not have the idea of going for a public listing, but the merger was the first priority, and to make it a bigger organization, and that took place, and with that we were ready to become a listed company. So with the time passed by, the group thought the best would be to list the company, then everyone has the opportunity to grow, as well as to, if somebody wants to exit, we had smaller shareholders as well, that is also an option. So by end of December 2020, we decided that we'll go for a listing, and we invited CT and CAL to be our partners as advisors for the listing. I think within a record breaking time of around 3 weeks, with the fullest cooperation from CSE, I think that is the times CSE also shifted to digitizing, and all the documents are submitted through online platform, and we managed to get the CSE approval within a very short period of 3 weeks time, and went for the listing, and it was a very successful operation.
Happy to hear that, and I think WindForce PLC listing was all the more significant simply because at the stock exchange, when we moved from a dual listing approval process to a single window, I think this is one of the first companies that
correct.
came under that new scheme.
Correct.
And we were able to give approval in a very short time, in a matter of 3 weeks, I think.
Correct.
So,
Correct.
significant in so many respects. You spoke about going international.
Yes.
How has your expansion plans worked out for you? Just to give a flavor of it, and what challenges have you encountered?
So we are already in few countries. We are in large scale in Pakistan. We have 2 power plants already in operation in Pakistan, and we have 3 power plants operating in Uganda, and 1 power plant operating in Ukraine. The challenges we are facing at the moment, one of them is the travel restrictions, which is quite challenging, but we are managing that. When it comes to funding, as you know, taking money, foreign currency from Sri Lanka is a challenge. So, for the time being, what we are looking at is going for 100% fund, international funding,
okay.
which is a possibility, and most of the international banks have given the green light because we have a very good track record.
Great, it's great to hear, and also it's also great to hear how you are strategizing to overcome some of the currency issues by going for international funding. I think that's
Yes.
the way companies should be moving as well. How do you see the renewable energy sector in Sri Lanka, and what progress are you seeing in that sector, and any challenges, or what is the future of that?
In Sri Lanka, the renewable energy sector started in the late 90s with the private sector, and it grew very fast because at that time there was a feed-in tariff mechanism. What you mean by a feed-in tariff is that the utility published the tariff for all the renewable energy technologies, and whoever has the technical capacity, whoever has resource location and the funding capacity could have developed a renewable energy project. So, it grew very fast. But unfortunately, in year 2015, the then government changed the policy from feed-in tariff to tendering process with competitive bidding. The intention was good. The intention was to have a transparent mechanism. But unfortunately, in Sri Lanka, the procurement guidelines are so cumbersome.
Yeah.
So, all in all, a project would take about 5 years to materialize. So, fortunately now the present government have realized that this is a stumbling block for expansion. So, they are going back to the feed-in tariff for projects up to 10 megawatts. And also they have called for expression of interest for projects up to above 50 megawatts. Because I forgot to mention that the government came up with a policy where 70% of the energy to be developed by renewable energy sources by 2030, which is a very, very ambitious target. Okay. So, to achieve that means by 2030 the estimated peak demand in the power sector is about 4,500 megawatts. And 28,000 gigawatts of energy that at the moment what we are generating is about 15,000 gigawatts. So, we are talking of almost doubling the capacity of energy, and out of that 70% should come from.
So, how do we compare with our peers regionally in terms of renewable energy? How successful are we?
At the moment, if you look at the Asian countries, I could say we are still at a better place because we have large hydros. So, the large hydro plants also contribute as renewable energy. So, at the moment if you take now, it is about 40% coming from renewable energy. So, as I said earlier, going to 70% means the utility has identified 4,000 megawatts should come from solar power and 1,500 megawatts additional should come from wind power. So, we are talking of 5,500 megawatts within the next 9 years. So, to expedite that process, they have introduced the feed-in tariff for 10 megawatts up to 10 megawatts. The tariff committee has sit couple of occasions and they have finalized the tariff, and now from what I know, the tariff committee has signed the tariff and sent to PUCSL for approval, and from there it will go to the cabinet, and then thereafter the previous method can be used to expedite the renewable energy generation. And the other option they have come up with is the expression of interest for 50 megawatt and above. That was called in November last year. It's surprising, almost 600 applications have been submitted by local and international parties. So at the moment the ministry is shortlisting all these applicants, and they will take them for approval in the very short time to come.
Yeah. So energy is a critical component, I think, if you are talking about economic development and meeting all of the goals that the government is talking about. Are there, in your opinion, any legislative reforms that are necessary to create the right environment to reach some of the goals that you really mentioned?
As I said earlier also, they have taken two major steps, that is bringing back the feed-in tariff for up to 10 megawatt capacity and going for expression of interest for larger projects. The next step is we have a single buyer model at the moment, that is we have only utility, the Ceylon Electricity Board, which is a loss making organization. So restructuring that organization is a must if we are to take this goal seriously. At least unbundling the generation, transmission and distribution, and make them accountable and run on their as autonomy, and that has to be done if we are to move forward.
WindForce also has been in the forefront of introducing new technology into the sector. Can you talk a little bit about how you came to do that, what strategies you used and enabled you to go the journey that you are really going?
So we started our journey in 2009. At that time there was before that there was only one wind power plant built by the utility in 1998 in Hambantota. So nobody believed in wind power potential in Sri Lanka. But in year 2003 the National Renewable Energy Authority of USA did a comprehensive study of the wind potential in Sri Lanka, and they published the document, and we studied that, we saw the potential. And 2009 we applied for 3 wind power licenses, and we got all 3 licenses because nobody was interested. And I must mention that at that time, as investors, Akbars and Hydromonies were willing to take the risk together with HSBC Bank. So we developed as pioneers, developed the first wind power plant in Puttalam. That's where the journey started. Then thereafter we ventured into solar as well as into hydropower. And even in solar, we were the first to introduce the tracking system. Since we are our country is near the equator, we identified that tracking the sun from morning to evening with automatic systems will generate 25% more energy. So that was also introduced. And during the COVID, we realized that we have to spend more time on research and development and try to build more of the equipment locally itself, because foreign currency is a challenge.
That's great to hear, and the kind of innovation and the technology and the fact that we have a renewable energy company on board on the stock exchange, I think adds value to our entire portfolio of listed stocks, simply because it's an option that you're giving investors away from the traditional sectors that are also listed, and also I think of much interest to foreign investors as well. One last question, and this is on on listing and shareholder value.
Yes.
Any comments that you like to make on how you want to drive shareholder value? Any message that you have for shareholders?
Definitely. If we look at our the net asset value of the company, it's about closer to 30 billion rupees, and the present market value, even the market value, the trading value is little less than the asset value. There is much of the potential for the share price to go up. And our initial public offering was at 16 rupees. The very first day it went to 19, and for the new shareholders there was a gain of about 18%. Presently it's trading at about 21. So if you look at the figures, it's about 30% up in the
gain.
Yes, gain. Our biggest asset is our human resource. We have I could say in the renewable energy space we have the best engineering and technical team. So the company will definitely grow as the leading renewable energy developer in the country, and also our target is to be have our name in the global presence. And when you look at our shareholder portfolio, majority of them are long-term investors. We have 1.35 billion shares issued. If you look at the first 20 shareholders, they hold 90% of the shares, and no one is interested in selling the shares. And since the listing, it's only 8 months, we have already declared dividends twice, and with a yield of about 8.5%. And so our growth is very stable, and our request is for our shareholders to look at us as a long-term stable investor.
That's great to hear, and the fact that WindForce PLC has already created shareholder wealth. Thank you for joining us today on Stock Pulse.
Thank you very much for the invitation, Ajay. Thank you.